Um, Thank you for that recording. Um, we have a packed evening for tonight. So if you would please help us get started by introducing yourself in the chat, telling us your name and telling us where you're from. And also, while you're doing that, we are going to be having one breakout later this evening, and we'll explain more about that. But that room is going to be the room where people go to do the deep canvassing calls who are already experienced with our open virtual phone bank tool. We don't want to torture you by making you sit through a 15-minute training. So we're going to have you experienced folks who know how to use OpenVPB head right into the room with Abby to get started right away. You can help, but you'll be able to choose that room on your own, but you'll be able to help us help you by putting an asterisk at the front of your name, just in case we need to help you get into the breakout room. It's 7:32 and we're going to get started right away. Let's see. All right. My name is Kimberly Tucker, and I'm on the training team here at Indivisible. And we are, again, so glad that you're here. Welcome. I have one small job this evening, and then my job is done. The organizers and our data guru, Bobby, are going to be taking it away, and we're all going to be making some phone calls tonight. Just briefly, I want to give you a brief overview of our evening right now. I hope you feel all warm and fuzzy and welcome. That's what we're doing right now. I want to give you an overview of our evening. The first thing we're going to do is when we finish with this introduction, is we're going to hear from someone who I have an absolute organizer girl crush on, Brianna Bro from North Carolina. She is an amazing organizer and has a lot of experience with deep canvassing in the field, and you're going to be able to hear from her. So that's the first thing we're going to do. After that, we're going to briefly review the script. We have a few changes from the last time, just a few minor changes. We think we've made it the script a little bit better. So Abby and Krista, our organizers also from the South Pod, are going to run through the script with you just to make sure that you are, aware of the changes and comfortable with I'm sorry, I was admitting someone and I hit the thing, so that you're comfortable with the script. Then we are going to go into the deep canvassing call block for the evening. Bobby from our data team is going to help those of you who need to learn how to use Open Virtual Phone Bank. And then you're going to have 30 to 45 minutes making phone calls. It's a very short window. It's not like regular canvassing where you get to talk to a lot of people. Consider success if you speak to one or two voters and are able to, if you're able to talk to one or two voters. That's what we're looking for. This is just so you can start to get a feel of what these deep canvassing conversations feel like. We're going to be sharing these resources with you in an email after the training tomorrow. You can expect that email, but one important reminder, we're going to be one important reminder about closed captioning. If you need to access closed captioning, you can find the CC at the bottom of the screen and you'll be able to turn on closed captioning. We will be sharing also some time to debrief the phone calls after we make a few phone calls after our deep canvassing call block. We'll come back, we'll debrief, and Rachel will be sharing with you some next steps. And as always, our training ends at 9, but the after party is from 9 to about 9:30. Now, very quickly, I just want to go read through this slide just as a brief reminder, some of the things that you want to keep in mind that we've gone over. You're going to want to make sure that you pay attention as you begin the conversation with building rapport with the person you're talking to. Pay attention to the empathetic listening skills. You're going to want to make sure that you are able to share your story and your vision. We've gone through that exercise on how to share your story so that you can use that to help the voter reconcile any conflicting views they may have. And then at the end, we're going to make the ask and close out the conversation. And you're going to want to talk only about 30% of the time and let the voter talk the most about 70% of the time. Now, last thing, to help you get started, and we'll give you the details later, but to help you get started on your own deep canvassing teams, we have scheduled 2 deep canvassing office hours. One is on October 28th from 4 to 5 Eastern Standard Time, and one is on November 3rd from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be sharing those registration links with you, but you'll be able to meet with organizers and we'll tell you more about that. Rachel will tell you more about that later. But that's all I wanted to share with you, and we're going to get this party started. And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel so that she can introduce you to Bree. Rachel.
Yes, hi everyone. Nice to be back with you all again tonight. And I do have the honor of introducing my friend Brianna Bro, who goes by Bree, and she, her pronouns. She currently is the North Carolina digital organizer for All on the Line, which is a 501c4 campaign that works to bring citizens across every issue together to win on redistricting in 2021. Bree was born and raised in North Carolina. She's a graduate of University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a former journalist and photographer. Prior to joining All on the Line in March of 2021, she organized with the NC Wins Coalition. Shout out to my people out there. And building connections between grassroots groups across North Carolina and facilitating their work on state level policy and electoral goals. She's also the co-founder of Flip NC, an all volunteer organization working through year-round direct voter contact to elect progressives in North Carolina. Flip NC organized volunteers to do year-round deep canvassing in North Carolina and to talk with voters about issues that matter to them and to help increase voter turnout. And so, hi, Bree. Nice to have you with us tonight.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm really excited that y'all are doing this because deep canvassing is like my favorite thing ever. And it's so important and it's so rewarding. And I know it can sometimes feel a little bit maybe scary at first, but it's really, really worth it and rewarding. And I'm excited to talk about it. So do you want me to just kind of launch in, or do you want to have, do you have questions or, okay.
Jump in and tell us about how you built the teams in North Carolina, some of the issues you've canvassed around.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about our work with Flip NC. That is an all-volunteer group, all grassroots that I co-founded in 2017, and we just had the idea that we wanted to impact elections at the state level, but that we, felt like the way that we needed to do that was by going into communities in our, where we were and really talking with voters on a personal level about the things that matter to them, and not so much about a particular candidate, not asking them for anything, not talking, so doing the work kind of outside of traditional election time. So but we did have a clear goal that we wanted to do, which was we wanted to identify areas that were competitive districts in North Carolina, because there aren't a lot of them. And we wanted to talk with voters there And so we built a team. We did that really by reaching out to our personal network and finding people who shared our goal of electing more progressive people to office in North Carolina. And then we kind of made a strategy to talk with people, to talk with voters. And then we figured out who we wanted to talk with. And then we were really clear that we wanted to really go in with a sense of curiosity and trying to learn what mattered to voters, to them, by not saying what we thought should matter. So we worked on our skills around, how to do that and how to go knock on someone's door and start a conversation. And we really did it by just sort of, we had some help with folks who had canvassing experience, who did a couple of trainings for us. And then we kind of learned by trial and error and getting feedback from our participants, our members, our volunteers. And, we learned that you can't, things like, you have to have a script, people have to be trained on, the general outlines of what you want to get across or what you want to say. But it's really, deep canvassing is not a science, it's really an art. And so you've got to have that guide, but then you've got to let people, I really believe you have to let people use their own words. And we do a lot of training and practicing, how we want to say, how individual people want to talk about a certain thing. Knowing our stories is really important. So we spend time with folks asking, thinking through, like, why are you here? Why is this important to you? Having a couple of different versions that you can do. You can talk about what, your story in 2 minutes or 30 seconds or 10 seconds, depending on the situation. And then also doing, active listening and reflecting back with people. And then asking elicitive questions, like really getting curious in the moment about, why someone, believes a certain thing, or, finding out what people care about, and trying to find different ways to ask the same question, or to ask questions to get to kind of the real core of what folks, care about. So we knocked on, I think it was, I'm not the numbers person. I'm so bad about remembering the right numbers. So I think we knocked on 25,000 doors ahead of the 2018 election. And again, we eventually did do like voter turnout, but most of our work is deep canvassing. And we did the same thing on the phones in 2020 before, prior to the actual election. We did the phone calls, just talking with voters, finding out what they needed, what they cared about, and trying to do that sort of work outside of elections, which we feel, and we have evidence is really effective at then, actually getting folks who otherwise might not engage in the election to engage. It's more effective actually than calling people during the election season. So that's sort of the
nuts and bolts of it, huh?
Bolts, but I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
Yeah, if anyone has a question they'd like to hear from Bree about, feel free to drop that in the chat now. I'm going to start with a question for you about how do you train people? What suggestions do you make for if a conversation is going badly? Like if it's going south on a doorstep, how do you handle that? That's something we've been asked a few times in prior trainings, and I'd love your feedback.
Yeah, so I mean, well, one thing we say is, you have to use your spidey sense. So sometimes you're going to come up on a situation where you don't want to continue a conversation. And so trust yourself, trust your gut, and feel and be okay with saying, thank you for your time. If you don't feel safe, you don't feel like you have to get through every conversation. I think having that safety makes people, when people know that, then they can open up to say, well, if something's going badly, can I push through this? And if you feel safe and you feel like you want to try to kind of dig a little deeper, it kind of goes back again to, trying to acknowledge what the person is feeling. I always try to sort of agree or say some, not agree with what they're saying necessarily, but sort of do a yes and say, I hear what you're saying, like I think about it differently, I think about it this way, or try to pull something from your personal experience that you can just like offer a different perspective for using I statements and not be judgmental. We also talk about elicitive questions. So, when you feel the urge to like maybe argue, instead say, well, can you say more about that? Or, I want to understand kind of what I'm hearing you say is, and then maybe repeat back and see if you're actually hearing what you think you're hearing. Is sometimes helpful. And, just being open and calm and breathing, when you get into a situation where someone you feel like they're arguing, or, you start feeling a little bit uncomfortable in your body, just taking a breath and saying, okay, let me get curious about this, and seeing if you can kind of investigate and work through it that way. And then, being prepared, again, I think like having practiced talking about your own experience or your own story, so that in those moments you can come back to that and just share something genuine and authentic of yourself. Usually you can connect on a human level, even if you don't agree. So that's helpful.
I think that's incredibly helpful. Thank you for that. And I am not seeing any questions flying up into the chat, but I guess that's a good thing. Everyone's too engrossed in listening to your history and your story. What issues did you canvass around in 2018 in North Carolina?
So we were, I know that when folks talk about deep canvassing, often it's about a specific issue and you're trying to change someone's mind or bring people around to a particular point of view. So that's not what we were doing. We were really doing kind of an investigative canvass where we were just really curious about what people cared about. So we did, our sort of goal wasn't to bring people to a particular point of view on an issue. It was more to connect the issues that they lifted up, that they cared about, with our state government. So making sure that people understood that if what they cared about was healthcare or education, how that was impacted by, who represented them in Raleigh. So that's what we were. It was a little bit of a different than what you might traditionally think of as a deep canvas, in that we weren't necessarily talking about or trying to, change someone's mind. But we wanted to understand what people cared about, and then make sure that we were connecting and finding out if they were, planning to vote and knew who their reps were and knew how important their vote was, really.
Well, I remember doing those canvases, and you very accurately nailed those conversations that we had on so many doorsteps. Thank you for your time tonight, Bree. I certainly appreciate you stepping in with us tonight. And I'm going to move us right along to the next section and introduce Krista and Abby, two other of our Southern state organizers. Abby has Georgia and North Florida. Krista covers Southern Florida plus Mississippi and Louisiana. Take it away, ladies.
Hey, y'all. Good evening. So Krista and I are going to do a brief sample conversation of the script. You will notice it probably feels a little rushed, and that's because we want to try and get you calling and actually having your own real experiences sooner than later. So while most of your conversations on the phone with real folks tonight will probably be 15, 20 minutes long, ours is...
Oh, you went on mute.
Yeah. I'm not sure why that happened. Anyway, just saying, you will notice that the goal of this is really to kind of take you through the script. The big chunk missing is the empathetic listening, a lot of the conversational piece that will come out a lot more genuinely from you. So I just wanted to mention that here, so you don't feel like you need to rush through the script the way that Krista and I are sort of about to. And with that, I think we can kick it off. So, hi, is this Krista?
Yeah, that's me.
Hey, Krista, my name's Abby, and I'm volunteering tonight with Texas Indivisibles. How are you holding up?
I'm doing fine, actually.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. I think I've adjusted myself a little bit. And thanks again for picking up my call, Krista. I called you because we're talking to voters about our right to vote. Unfortunately, some Texas elected officials want to set us back, making it harder to vote by creating barriers for communities of color, working class, young, disabled, and new Americans to vote. In spite of all that, our records show that you voted in 2020, and we are so grateful for that. I'm curious, when it comes to voting in the next election, with the information you have, on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is you are definitely not going to vote in the next election, and 10 is you would 100% persist in the face of these attacks, where would you put yourself as far as voting in the next election?
Um, Probably a 7.
Okay. Why is that the right number for you?
I don't know. I guess I say that because voting was pretty easy. It didn't take too much time, but sometimes I'm not sure if it really matters.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know what you mean. Do you feel like voting makes a difference in your life or the lives of the people you care about?
It's hard to say exactly. I've never really been involved in politics, and I'm doing pretty okay that way. But honestly, Trump being president freaked me out, and I didn't want to have to deal with that anymore. But I guess I haven't really seen any direct change in my life since Biden was elected. But I do feel a sense of relief that someone as harmful as Trump isn't the president anymore. And I hope that that's the same for other people, especially those who were more directly affected by Trump's policies and rhetoric than I was.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Krista. Even though I'm pretty involved in politics, I honestly feel the same way sometimes. And I totally agree with you. It is a huge step in the right direction to be where we are today compared to where we were a year ago. Sadly, rather than celebrating the historic voter turnout we saw in 2020, some Texas elected officials have been hard at work trying to silence our voices by putting up barriers that make it harder to vote. It sounds like you were able to vote pretty easily last year, which is great. I'm curious, do you have any friends or family who've encountered unreasonable obstacles to voting?
In the last election, no, but I've had friends of mine say that they're really confused about all the changes that our state is making about the voting laws, and almost feels like they're trying to make the process so complicated that only people who are able to take time to research all the changes will be able to then vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, and I agree. It should be easy for everyone to feel included in our democracy. What kinds of concerns have your friends shared with you?
Well, in the industry that we work in, like me and my friends, we tend to work odd hours. And so, like, I've had friends who took advantage of the extended voting hours last year. And I'm not sure, especially in like a midterm, if they would make the time to vote, um, if they had the time off for it.
Yeah, I hear you there. I used to work in a food distribution warehouse, and it was always really tough for us to figure out how to give our drivers time off. And it should be easier to for people to vote so they can feel included in our democracy, not harder. So we've talked a little bit about your experience voting and your friends. In general, can you think of a time in your life when you felt excluded or like your voice didn't matter?
Actually, yeah, this has been on my mind because the holidays are right around the corner. But yeah, my extended family, getting together with my extended family, I always feel like the odd one out talking about things that are important to me, like the climate or women's rights. I feel like I'm told to be quiet or accused of ruining conversations. Sometimes even certain family members are actually they'll be like insulting to me and like say some really offensive stuff, and it's really hard because my liberal family members don't even stand up for me. They tell me to keep my opinions to myself, and it's so hard for me. So that's something I'm not really looking forward to this holiday season.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, of course your voice matters and your opinion matters. And I'm sorry that sometimes the holidays bring up a little bit of dread for you. Actually, as I was listening to what you said, it made me think about sometimes that I felt my own voice didn't matter with my family as well, specifically my parents. I'm lucky I have a pretty good relationship with my parents, don't get me wrong, but they interrupt me when I'm talking a lot. I attribute it to the fact that in their head, I'm their kid, not fully an adult with opinions or insight or something. And, you know, in recent years, I've started to deal with that by rather than just letting them interrupt me and patiently waiting for my chance to continue. I've started interrupting back and saying, "May I finish my point?" And sometimes to be heard, we have to push on. We have to push on louder and stronger in order for people to make room for us. And I guess that's kind of how I feel about these attacks on our freedom to vote. Like the elected officials putting those new changes in place want us to give up, meaning it's even more important that we don't. I'm really concerned about how the Republicans in power in Texas have pushed through, honestly, the strictest voter suppression laws we've ever seen. I believe we should be amplifying the voices of people of color and working class people and young people rather than trying to silence their voices by putting up roadblocks. So, and thanks again for taking all this time to chat with me. It's been really nice talking with you. Now that we've been talking about this for a little while and considering everything going on in our state, how likely are you to vote in current and future elections? Again, on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is you definitely won't vote and 10 is you're 100% sure you definitely will vote. Where would you put yourself?
Now that we've talked, I would say probably a 9.
And why is that the right number for you?
Being able to talk about this out loud, I've realized the reason I don't always vote is because the process is complicated and a little daunting sometimes, and that's not my fault. The process is sort of exclusive right now, which makes it even more important that people like me find ways to take part so that we're not left out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And thanks for just sharing everything with me that you did this evening. It sounds like making your voice heard, no matter the obstacles you face, is important to you. And that is really encouraging to hear. So just want to thank you again for your time. I hope that you will stay involved in your community and chat with some of your friends and loved ones about the importance of voting. Thanks again for your time and take care. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Wow. Wonderful job making through the script, ladies. I loved it. I hope everyone kind of saw the elements in action there and get your comfort level built up a little bit with the script we have at hand. And I'm going to pause and bring on Bobby Michaels from Indivisible's data team. Fantastic. You there, Bobby?
Yes, hey everyone. Glad to be here with you all today. I think we're ready to go ahead and get started, right, Rachel?
I think so, yeah.
Awesome, okay. Well, as Rachel said, my name is Bobby. I'm with the data team. I'm the person who behind the scenes puts together all of your open phone banks, your canvases, your silent lit drops. So I'm super excited to be here with you all. So you can get started on your issue canvassing project here. So just to go over a few things with you, some of the stuff has already been said, but just to reiterate some of the most important points. The conversations that you're going to be having today are a little bit different from our normal phone banks that we've done, say perhaps last year when we were calling voters about who they're voting for or when and how they're going to be voting. Those are more usually quicker conversations that we have with voters. These ones are intentionally supposed to be longer. And so you're not going to have as many in the same amount of time as you would a phone bank around GOTV, for instance. So having 1 to 2 conversations, like Kimberly mentioned at the beginning of the call, is pretty normal for this type of voter engagement. So don't be worried if you only have that few at the end of your phone banking session. The type of voters that we're going to be talking to today, that some of the others have already alluded to, are those voters who voted last year, but they might not have voted in some of the previous elections. And for whatever reason, they've either been turned off by what's going on in the news or some of the same issues that Abby and Krista laid out in their example conversation that we just had of voters just being disenfranchised for so many different reasons. And so those are the voters we're talking to. They voted in 2020, but they may have missed a few elections before that over the last decade, let's say. So what we're going to do today is walk through how to log into Action ID and then log into the open virtual phone bank that you'll be using to make your calls. So in just a second, I'm going to share my screen. First,
do you want to let me know when to open the room so people who know how to use open virtual phone bank already, we can let them go? I don't see any asterisks by their names, but whenever you're ready to let the experienced folks with open VPB, let me know and I'll open the rooms.
Sure, yeah. If there is anyone who is super experienced and comfortable with getting started right away, please feel free to join Kimberly and I believe Abby in that breakout room now. And then for everyone else who would like a refresher or who might be newer to using the tool, feel free to stay here and then we'll go ahead and walk through how to use the tool now. So I'm gonna move that.
So you should see a pop-up on your screen. If you know how to use open virtual phone bank, you can go on and join the breakout room. Abby will be there with you. If you need some refresher information or you've never used it, you stay here in the main room and Bobby will be going through that with you. So I'm going to, there we go.
Awesome. So I'm going to drop the open virtual phone bank link in the chat right now, and you all are free to click on it now. It'll take you to the login screen, and that's where we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm about to share my screen. Let's do that. All right. So if any one of the other moderators could let me know if they can see the screen, we will go ahead and get started. So this is what the screen is going to look like when you click on the open virtual phone bank link. You'll be taken to this screen where you'll be asked to log in with your Action ID. If you have not created one, you simply click right here where it says create account. And it only needs a few pieces of information. It'll need an email to contact you at. You'll create a password right away. And you can option to have it show the password as you create it. It'll need your first and last name and your phone number. And then just clicking that you agree to the privacy policy with Open Virtual Phone Bank. And that's all you need. Once you're done and hit create account, it'll take you directly to the phone bank. So those of you who do need to do that, go ahead and do that now. I'll wait about 30 seconds to give everyone a quick chance to put in that simple information. And then we'll move forward slowly just so those who might be having a little bit of trouble can catch up. But I'm going to go back to the main one and log in. I'll give it another 10 seconds for those who are still creating their account. Hopefully it's not too hard for anyone. And if you are having trouble, once we walk through the script and the setup of the screen here, before you start making calls, I can help anybody who might be having trouble getting logged in. So for those that are having trouble, don't worry. We'll handle that as soon as we walk through the screen here. All right, so feel free to keep putting in your info if you're creating your account still, but we will go ahead and get started with just how the screen is laid out and how we navigate it. So the screen is split into two sections. Along the left-hand side is the information about the voter that you're calling. So the information that we've included for you to kind of know as you go through the conversation with them is their cell phone, what congressional district they are in the state, their county, personal email if we have it, polling address and polling location. So we don't actually have those pieces of information, but we have this website that you can give them if they do need to find out that information. They're able to visit that website and collect the information there. We have their precinct number, their preferred email, preferred phone, and then their state house and state senate numbers, or districts rather, excuse me. We also have their voter file van ID. That's not relevant for them. That's just a piece of information we use here on the back end. And then their voting city, state, and zip. And then their voting history general. So that shows you how many times they voted in the last the last 3 general elections that have been held. So that includes midterms and presidential. So in other words, this vote, so pretty much we know that this voter voted last year in 2020, but did not vote the 2 previous general elections before that. So they didn't vote in 2018 or 2016. And so again, that goes back to the voter population that we're talking to today, which is they voted last year for sure, but they may not have voted in 1 or more of the previous elections over the last decade. On the kind of center to right-hand side of your screen is where we have the basic information of the voter. So their name, their phone number, their age and sex. And then we have the beginning of the script. So the script is very similar to what Abby and Krista walked through just a minute ago. So pretty much everything is there. At the top, you'll see this red button that says, I couldn't reach Emily. Now, the way this is set up, the way open VPBs are set up is that you can either select an answer for if the voter, you were not able to talk to them, or you'll be able to select the answers to the questions in the script as you go through the conversation with them. So you can't do both for the same voter. So if you are not able to get a hold of Emily for whatever reason, you'll click on the red button and then this drop down will appear. Your options are not home, refused, deceased, moved, call back, busy, left message, wrong number, and disconnected. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but there are a few that I do want to go over. So refused is anytime that you do not get to talk to the voter, but someone picks up and either they tell you they don't want to talk to you, they tell you to stop calling me, something along those lines. So you start the conversation, but you're not actually able to have the conversation with the voter. We want to mark them refused because obviously they're not going to be receptive to any reason that we're calling for. So we want to remove them from our list so we don't have to worry about calling them back in the future. So we'll mark them as refused. Wrong number and disconnected are the other 2 that I want to go over with everyone. Some people conflate the 2 and think they're the same thing. They're actually not. So wrong number is when someone picks up the phone and lets you know, oh, that person doesn't live here anymore, or their number has changed. In those situations is when we want to mark them as wrong number. Disconnected is when you get that automatic message that tells you this number is no longer in service or has been disconnected. Excuse me. In those situations, that's when we want to go ahead and mark it as disconnected. One thing I do want to stress is please make sure you listen to that automated recording all the way through at least once. There are some areas of the country where that automated recording will not tell you until the end of the message that it may just be a temporary disconnect. Maybe they forgot to pay their bill or something happened. In those situations, we want to just go ahead and mark them as not home. So that way we have a chance to try them again at a later date. But if you do not hear that message at the end of it saying that it is just a temporary disconnection, then we want to go ahead and mark them as disconnected and move on. But if you do hear that bit at the end of the recording, go ahead and mark them as not home, so that way we can give them another chance later. Let's say you click on the I couldn't reach Emily button by accident, just hit cancel, and it'll take you back to the script here. So the script is laid out exactly as Abby and Krista went through the example just a few minutes ago. Here you'll see each question clearly labeled. So there were multiple questions. I believe there's 1 through 8, I believe, 9. And so only a few of the questions actually have drop-down survey question options that you'll need to choose from. And the 2 here in this particular script are the ones where we ask the voter on a scale of 0 to 10, where do you think you fall? And so for those 2 questions, you'll click on the drop-down as you're asking them the question and choose whichever number they decide to place themselves at based on that point in the conversation. Once you've selected an option, it'll appear in the drop-down, and then you know that it's good to go and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You'll continue progressing through the script. And then as you get to the next one, just make sure you do the same thing, put in whatever option they give you. And then you would move on to the rest of the script. And then at the bottom, of course, we have a send-off greeting, or however you might want to say it. At the bottom, you'll also notice that there's a note section that you are able to type into. And this is where you can put any notes that you think we as a team would need to know later on whenever we want to try and engage these voters again. If it's someone who has a particularly interesting story, or if you feel that they need to be called back at a certain time, you can include notes here at the bottom to let us know, and we can go through the notes later on to see if there's anybody that we need to follow up with or send more information to, anything of that nature. Excuse me. So feel free to use the note section whenever you need to. And again, we can look at those notes at a later date. So I'm going to go back up here and just clear these options out so that way someone can talk to Emily. And so once you're done having the conversation with the voter, you have a couple options. If it's time for you to be done making calls, you can just hit stop making calls here at the bottom. It'll take you to a confirmation screen just asking you, are you sure you want to stop making calls? You'll just hit yes, and then you're good to go. If you're still good on making calls after you finish the script, anytime you put an answer in one of the survey questions, so I'll do it again just as an example. Up here, that light blue button is now a dark blue, and it says save and next call. So once you're completely done talking to the voter and they hang up with you, feel free to hit that save and next call button, and then you're able to move on to the next voter. The screen will refresh, and it'll give you the next number to call and who to talk to. And that's pretty much it. That is the Open VPP system for those that are new. Was there any questions that anyone might have?
I see a couple of questions here in the chat. One is from Susan, says, are we calling from our own phones, like dialing the numbers? Is the computer hooked up to our phones?
No, so the computer, excuse me, the computer is not hooked up to your phone. So we do recommend calling on your phone and then using your PC or laptop or Chromebook to make the call, to use the Open VPP link on your browser. So call from your phone and use your computer or Chromebook to pull up the Open VPP link.
Okay. The question, if the person, if you're concerned that the person has your actual phone number afterwards.
So if they do have caller ID, which most people do now, they are able to see your number. I wouldn't really worry about it. There's not that many. I've, in the thousands upon thousands of calls I've made over the last decade, I've gotten maybe 5 callbacks. So I don't think that will really be anything you'll have to worry about. Usually they're just calling back to find out who it is, and anyone that I've ever really had call back, they've usually been pretty receptive to, why you're calling. Just, hey, I'm a volunteer with Indivisible, and, maybe just do a brief rundown of the reason you're calling it, and maybe they'll be able to, have a conversation with you at the moment.
I know if you are really concerned about it, you can use a number through the Google Voice app. I believe Chris said that in the chat as well. And then a question from Sylvia. Can you explain voting history general again? This voter had a 1/3.
Yes. So the voting history general, the way we created the list is we wanted to talk to those voters that voted last year in the general, in the 2020 presidential, but may have missed some of the other general elections, both midterm and presidential elections, from the last decade. So what that number means is that out of the last 3 general elections, again, whether it's midterm or presidential, that voter voted however many number is before the slash and the 3. So that voter only voted last year out of the last 3 elections. You might have someone who voted in all 3 by chance. It is possible in the list. So it's anyone that voted definitely last year, but may not have voted in every election over the last decade.
Awesome. I think that covers questions that were in the chat. I did see a concern about not having a Texas area code. I think with cell phones now, people are used to seeing a variety of area codes coming into their phone. So that's less of a concern, I think, maybe than it once was. For most people.
For sure. And another best practice with that is, just be honest with the person and let them know, I'm volunteering with Texas Indivisible, or excuse me, with one of the local Indivisible groups in Texas, and let them know, you're just helping them reach out to their neighbors to find out what the issues are that they care about most. And that's totally fine to say. And that's the reality. That's what we're doing. We're reaching out to our neighbors and our fellow voters in Texas to empower them to vote in the upcoming election.
Mm. All right, if maybe you want to drop that link again for folks to get ready to start calling, just so it's fresh there in the chat.
Sure,
And we're going to encourage folks to go ahead. If you are ready to start making those calls, you can leave yourself on mute. You can maybe turn the volume down on your computer, because we will probably be answering a little bit of questions, doing a little bit of troubleshooting here in this main room. And we will see everyone back here at 8:45. So you have about 30 minutes to get out there and try to make some connections. And we wish you great luck and great success. And we'll see you on the other side. All right, kind of opening up the space here. If you are struggling and want, I see a question. If someone asks, what's Indivisible? How do I concisely answer? Any one of my teammates want to jump in there on that one?
A volunteer network of a left-leaning, don't use the word liberals, a volunteer network of left-leaning folks who care about the issues that are important to you, or something like that.
Yeah. Volunteer Grassroots Network is a quick, I guess, summary too. Did anyone have trouble getting logged in? Let's start there first. You can let yourself off mute and we'll try to get you.
Yes, I have Dashlane, which has gone totally automated and takes over. And I never got in because it kept making a new doing a do loop of new passwords.
So Shay and or Bobby will be in the help room. We can put you in the help room and they can help you get going. Okay, Ted?
All right, sure thing.
Here. Shay and or Bobby, if you give me heads up, let me know you're in there.
I don't think I'm in there yet. If you could move me over there.
Okay. Let's see. First. And you can also select if you look at the breakouts, you can choose the help room also. Okay.
I didn't see the help room.
Let's see, Bobby. Let's see. Ted, I'm gonna put you in the help room.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. There we go. Thank you.
Okay. And then Bobby. Did somebody put Bobby in there? Nope.
Yeah, he's there.
Oh, is he? Am I in the help?
Yeah, I moved him, but I can join too.
Okay, that's fine. Either way.
I am going to pause our recording.
We get all of our information from the public voter files of each state.
Okay.
And so as long as each state has theirs updated, we get our updates straight from them. Some states are a lot quicker at it. Some are a little bit slower. It all depends on their resources and population size and whatnot. Excuse me, but yeah. So we get all of our information straight from them. So it's whatever the voter has provided to them comes straight to us from them. And then as far as our interactions with voters, what questions they answer with us, what information they give us as far as their voting history or who they're voting for, whatnot, that all stays with us because due to compliance laws, organizations, campaigns, and all that, they can't share information with each other. So in other words, let's say you also do work with the Florida Democratic Party. The Florida Democratic Party can't see what we do in Van, and we can't see what they do. So each organization or entity that uses Van keeps their data, and only they can see it.
So now I had to create a new password because I had a password previously when I used Van in Florida. Will this password I created today be useful or valid in Florida in their system?
Yes, so that's the good thing about Action ID.
Okay.
Action ID is kind of like a catch-all for all of your different Van work. So as long as you link all of your individual Van accounts that you have with the different organizations you volunteer with, you link it to your Action ID, and then you can use just your Action ID to sign into any one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I knew you'd have the best answers there, Bobby. Thanks,
I
everyone.
I didn't mean to be critical of Texas or anywhere else, but I know it's been an ongoing issue in Florida.
Yeah.
Where it just doesn't get updated. And then, you spend quite a bit of time making sure you fill out and you do notes and, who knows what happens to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We did want to take a few minutes and open up space for some debriefing. Is everyone back? Kind of think we are.
Yes, all the rooms are closed.
All right. So who out there maybe had a really great phone call and would like to come off chat and talk about it a little bit? Edie, I see you've got a great comment in here. Would you like to talk about it a little bit?
She might be trying to connect her headphones back to her computer.
Maybe. if you get a moment there. Let's see. A lot of people didn't get to have those conversations, and unfortunately with phone banking, that can be just one of the like Margaret was saying, one of the frustrating pieces. Of course, walking in a neighborhood door to door can be just as, you can have mixed results too, with people not answering the doors. And but I feel like at least that way I've got my steps in for the day. So there's a productive health benefit to door-to-door canvassing that you don't quite get in the phone. But of course, having these conversations does help us get gather better data so that the next phone call is better and the next phone banking session is even more accurate. But let's see. I see Margaret saying, thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. You're welcome. You're welcome. Sometimes we do get a little comfortable, and I feel like when we take action, it always helps improve my state of being, that I, been productive, that I'm doing the good work with other people, aligned with the same goals, and that lifts my spirits in ways that, watching the news or some doom scrolling through social media doesn't. And so knowing that we were here and doing this work together tonight is always a positive. Let's see. All right. So if no one's got a great story to share about a phone call they had, or maybe even a phone call that didn't go well, we can open up that space. But we do want to go ahead and dive into our next steps. And we want to invite you now to join us for our deep canvassing office hours. For help getting started with your own canvassing team. The goal of this for us has been to help develop canvas teams out in the turf. So find a couple of friends, get signed up for every action, pick an issue you want to canvass about, or just talk with voters to find out what issues are important to them. And you can get help from us in developing your script, and with Bobby for setting up that universe of who you want to be speaking with. So I believe Abby has dropped our office hours. We are going to be offering these October 28th from 4 to 5 Eastern. Lauren and Bobby will hold that hour open if you would want to register to spend some time with them talking about what, how to develop your good script, how to pick that issue. And then on November 3rd from 7 to 8 p.m., Abby and Bobby will be hosting those hours. And, that's also an opportunity where you can sign up to get access to our tools so that you can work on calling your voters. It's an opportunity to help narrow down what topics you'd want to deep canvassing on. And our fantastic organizers and Bobby will be there to support you in that work. I think that brings us close to the end tonight. We want to say thank you. You guys, many of you folks have stood in there and stuck with us for 4 training sessions, which is incredible, just powerful. We hope you gained some great skills. Again, this is tailored around canvassing, but a lot of those skills are going to be great practice pieces for having conversations with those that you do know and that are in your family or your friend circles, that understanding how to maybe move people a little bit at a time into closer alignment with maybe your values, with your goals. And yes, Edie, we are back in the main room debriefing. I see Margaret was able to practice some empathetic listening with a friend who is all into, hang in there for a little bit on the after party. I'd love to hear about that, Margaret. And I think we're gonna call it a wrap for the evening. Does Kimberly or Krista, Abby have anything more to add to our training this evening?
No, we appreciate you for being with us for 4 sessions, for being interested in doing this work. I call folks who are engaging in deep canvassing hometown heroes, because you are doing the hard work of changing this country at home on issues that are important to you. Are there any questions? Any of our staff members who have been monitoring the chat, did any questions come up from people? I know we weren't together very much and we were trying to make phone calls, but were there any questions that emerged that we should answer before we wrap it up?
I saw Margaret asked where in the chat, and I wasn't sure what you're referring to, Margaret. If it's something you want to ask now to the group, that's great. If you want to just hang back for a couple minutes during our after party, as we now call it, that's great.
No, I was trying to say something, and whatever I kept hitting on my keyboard, it would post it, and I didn't need to do that.
Oh, no worries. It happened.
One important question did come up. For those of you who might be interested in continuing making phone calls into Texas, this phone bank will be open through January right now. So you can make calls if you ever try to log into the phone bank and it says it's no longer available, as long as it's not after January, it's that you're calling out of the hours. I think it's after 9 in the morning and before 8 or something like that. Bobby, if you're still on here, you can correct me.
Yeah, it's available 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time. So I believe all of Texas is in Central Standard Time, I believe. So as long as you call between 10 and 8 each day through January 15th, I believe it's set up through, you are more than welcome to help make calls.
If you are in Georgia and you want to make phone calls in Georgia, we're able to get you started making phone calls in Georgia around voter suppression. Folks in North Carolina, I know our Indivisibles are really pushing back hard against the critical race theory drama that's going on. So whatever issues are important and that you want to mobilize around, or if you want to, like they did in North Carolina, pick some strategic districts and just talk to voters about what's important to you. we can help you get that done. And if there are no further questions.
I saw Edie had a question in the chat, actually.
Oh, Edie, office hours. No, they're not call banks. Those are if you want to start a deep canvassing team in your hometown and you want some help figuring out what issue, what you want some help developing your script. You want to get help getting signed up so that you can have a phone bank in your area around your issue. Anything you need, that's your one-stop shop to meet with our phenomenal organizers from the South to help get you started. So they will hold your hand. Where are you from, Edie, Texas?
Yeah, from Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay.
I've met Lauren. Yeah.
Oh,
so.
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So I can just. Do you mind if I chat?
Not at all. I think.
Is this a party?
This is the after party.
I'm going to go ahead and thank everybody one more time and end our recording.
Yeah.